On February 2nd, 1964, the body of Hannah Tailford was found on land that would be submerged during the high tide along the River Thames. The body was near the London Corinthian Sailing Club's clubhouse. Tailford was also only a short distance from Hammersmith Bridge. Tailford's body wasn't far from where the body of Elizabeth Figg had been found 5 years earlier, or Gwyneth Reese's body the previous year. All three women were known to be sex workers. Additionally, all three women were known to have been treated for at least one sexually transmitted disease. Figg, Reese, and Tailford were also all pregnant at the time of their deaths. All three women had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. Their bodies were left naked in the same area. Unlike the other two, Tailford's underwear were shoved down her throat and she was missing several teeth. These are commonly thought to be the first three victims of an unsolved serial killer case known as Jack the Stripper. We'll look at the remaining 5 victims right after my overly obnoxious trigger warning. Roll the intro. Just over 2 months after Tailford was found, Irene Lockwood was found on April 8, 1964, in the same area as Tailford. The discovery of her body had the cops believing that a serial murderer was active in the area. Like Tailford, Lockwood was also a pregnant sex worker who had been sexually assaulted, strangled, and left nude. 16 days later, Helen Barthelemy was found nude in the alley behind 199 Boston Manor Road in Brentford. Like the others, Barthelemy was a known sex worker, had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. Flecks of paint used in automobile manufacturing were found on or with her body, the first solid lead. Police focused on attempting to link the paint to nearby businesses. About 2.5 months later, on July 14th, people heard a car reversing down Berrymead Road in Chiswick. Upon investigating, they found the nude body of a known sex worker, Mary Flemming, outside 48 Berrymead Road. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled to death. On October 23, 1964, Frances Brown was seen getting into a client's gray Ford Zephyr by a colleague. This was the last time she was seen until November 25th, when her nude body was found in a car park on Hampton Street in Kensington. She was nude and had been strangled to death. The advanced state of decomposition made it impossible to determine if she had been sexually assaulted. Brown's colleague provided the identikit sketch I've been showing during this video. Brown had testified for the defense in the Profumo affair, a scandal involving an elected public official. The final victim was found on February 2, 1965. Bridget O'Hara, also a known sex worker, was located near a storage shed used by Heron Trading Estate in Acton. She went missing on January 11th. Her body was found with flecks of paint similar to those found with Brown. The paint was traced to an electrical transformer near the body. Pathologists also believe the body to have been heated post-mortem, which is also explained by close proximity to an electrical transformer. Once again, advanced decomposition prevented conclusive determination of sexual assault. However, she was nude and strangled to death. Now that we know all the victims, let's take a look at some of the suspects. On April 27, 1964, Holland Park Tennis Club caretaker Kenneth Archibald walked into the Notting Hill police station, identified himself, and confessed to the murder of Irene Lockwood. Archibald was taken into custody, but later entered a plea of not guilty and recanted his confession. There was no other evidence against him. He was still tried for murder. The jury found him not guilty and he was acquitted. In his 2006 book, Jack of Jumps, linked in the description, David Seabrook postulated that a police detective was suspected by several other police officers working the case. As far back as 1972, Sun reporter Owen Summers also postulated that the culprit might be a cop. Brian McConnell's 1974 book, Found Naked and Dead, also followed a similar track. In 2016's Laid Bare, The Nude Murders and the Hunt for Jack the Stripper, Dick Kirby also postulated a cop as the culprit. None of these people actually named the cop. Jimmy Evans and Martin Short released The Survivor in 2002, in which they named Police Superintendent Tommy Butler as their prime suspect. Could Tommy be the cop all those other people are talking about? Let me know what you think in a comment. Maybe it was a famous boxer. Freddie Mills was the world light heavyweight boxing champion from 1948 to 1950. He was well past his athletic prime by 1964. Former gangster Jimmy Tippett Jr. was researching a book about gangland in England in 2001 when he claims to have uncovered information linking Mills to the Jack the Stripper murders. Tippett claims that Charlie Richardson and Frank Frazier, well-known Cray area gangsters, suspected Mills of the crimes. In July of 1972, journalist Peter Neal contacted police claiming a serving chief inspector told him Mills killed the nude prostitutes. Neal went further to claim that this was public knowledge in the West End, with people stating, "Oh, Freddie did him in." Mills was found dead in his car in 1965. Ostensibly, he had shot himself. The Mills accusation originated with Frazier, who told a cop named Bob Barry. Barry then told the Sun reporter Michael Litchfield. Frazier claims Mills confessed to John DeRose, the Scotland Yard chief superintendent. In DeRose's autobiography, the case is discussed, but Mills is not mentioned. In 2011, a new suspect was named. Fred Deneinage, Murder Casebook, on the Crime and Investigation Channel, theorized about Harold Jones' guilt in 2011. In 1921, the 15-year-old Jones had killed 2 girls in Barthelemy. Due to his age, he was sentenced to life instead of getting the death penalty. In 1941, the 35-year-old Jones was released from Wandsworth Prison for exemplary behavior. Upon his release, he returned to Barthelemy and visited the graves of his victims. By 1947, Jones was living in Fulham, London. His whereabouts during the time of the murders are unknown. Aside from the sexual assaults, all the Jack the Stripper murders were very similar to Jones' known victims. In his 2011 book, Who Was Jack the Stripper, Neil Milkins states, Jones turned up in Fulham in the late 1940s, calling himself Harry Stevens, and stayed at that address in Hastercombe Avenue until 1962, at which point he disappeared again. I came across the Jack the Stripper case on the internet and realized that in the same 3 years Jones' whereabouts remained unknown, 1962 to 1965, a number of prostitutes had been murdered in the same West London area. In the 2019 documentary Dark Sun: The Hunt for a Serial Killer, strong links are made between Jones' known crimes and the murders by an investigative team using modern police techniques. Jones died in 1972 and was not a contemporary suspect in the murders due to a record-keeping error. The strongest suspect in the case is Mungo Ireland. In 1970, DeRose referred to Mungo Ireland as a 40-something respectable married man codenamed Big John. Ireland was linked to the case because he worked at Heron Trading Estate, where the paint chips found with Bridget O'Hara originated from. Shortly after the interview aired, Ireland decided to inhale his car's exhaust until he was dead. Ireland left a note that in part states, "Can't stick it any longer," and finished, "To save you and the police looking for me, I'll be in the garage." Recent research suggests that Ireland was in Scotland when O'Hara was murdered. More recent research suggests that those work records could be false. Milkins points out that after Ireland's death, the murder stopped and the police task force was greatly reduced before being disbanded completely. In Dark Sun, The Hunt for a Serial Killer, Milkins points out, on the morning that Ireland's body was found, he had been due to appear before Acton Magistrate Court to face a charge of failing to stop his car after being involved in a road traffic accident, and that unaliving himself over such a minor charge would be unusual at best. Wilkins goes on to inquire, did Ireland commit suicide to save facing Acton magistrates over a traffic motoring charge, or did John DeRose push him over the edge with his press statements? The Scotland Yard Serious Crime Review Group reviewed the murders in 2006 and 2007. This review led them to state, the circumstantial evidence against Mungo Ireland is very strong, and it was the view of the officers conducting the most recent review of his case that he was the most likely to be responsible. Let's wrap this video up, shall we? The first modern serial killer is often considered to be Jack the Ripper. I'm sure you're familiar with his case, but let me point out some of the similarities. Both murderers operated exclusively in London, though in different parts of the city. Both murderers exclusively killed sex workers. Both murderers left their victims in places where they would be quickly found. Both murderers were sloppy as shit, and both murderers were never caught. If Jack the Stripper was active today, do you think he'd be caught? Do you think that the pervasive video surveillance we are all under today would be enough to catch him? Do you think that with all these sexual assaults, the police would get DNA evidence against him? Do you believe that the reason Jack the Stripper got away with his murders is because he operated in a time before modern investigative techniques were used? Let me know in a comment. Please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing the video as well. As always, remember that super thanks and memberships are super cool. And now, I got a jam, so tag your